It is time to head back to Middle-earth. Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson is back with The Hobbit, and I chatted with one of its stars, Richard Armitage, about the epic new action-adventure. First, tell me, Richard, you hear that you're going to be in The Hobbit. Big Lord of the Rings coming out, the big trilogy. What's it like to get that call that you're going to be in The Hobbit?
I have to be honest, I was incredibly confused because I'm a 6'2.5" guy, and I got the phone call saying, will you come in and audition for a dwarf? So I was like, are you kidding? But then I read this amazing scene that they'd written, which basically encompassed everything about the character, which was going to play through 3 movies. And I looked at some of the sketches by John Howe and Alan Lee, and I thought, actually, you know what, I could probably play this. So I went to meet Peter, and we just hit it off. And then when you get that call, it's just the most incredible feeling.
How do you prep to be a dwarf? Did you read the Tolkien novel beforehand? Did you go back to the source material a lot?
Do you know what? You pretty much do everything you possibly can. So before filming starts, I went back to the book, which I'd read as a child, and I looked at as much Tolkien as I could, because he writes about all of his races in other materials. So I did all of that. And then when we got to Wellington, we went through an intense training period with a guy called Terry Notary, who I think is actually a Canadian. I think he trained with Cirque du Soleil. So he taught us how to become dwarves. So it was a certain way of walking, a secret sign language, sprinting with these massive heavy boots on, and because they have a different physicality to human beings. So that took 6 weeks until it was in our bodies. And so you start with the cerebral, and then you go to the physical, and then you just start working.
Talk to me about the daily prep. I mean, looking at you today, I wouldn't even recognize you how you looked in the movie. So what kind of prep did you have to do in terms of makeup and the hair and everything?
Yeah, the makeup and hair and body was basically designed by Weta and applied by Tammy Lane, who's an Oscar-winning prosthetics artist, and Jennifer Stanfield, who did all the hair. And my face had been through like 7 different sculpts by an amazing sculptor at Weta called Jamie Beswarek. So they really created a look for Thorin, which started quite extreme and slowly became more like my own face. So there's a little bit of me in there. But it was a 3-hour process every morning, because each prosthetic, you put it on, you take it off, and you chuck it in the bin. So it goes on and off every day. But I actually found it like it was part of my process of getting into character, is watching the character sort of forming in front of you. But it was a bit of an endurance test, and if you drink too much alcohol the night before, the face actually starts to fall off about midday, because it comes off with alcohol. So I had to really work hard to restrict my alcohol intake.
That's a nice look.
Yeah, as it starts to slide.
Now, tell me what it's first like to walk onto the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit sets. You'll see to walk into that world. I mean, I'm sure you'd seen the movies beforehand. So what's it like to first walk into those sets yourself?
Do you know what? That was my first day on set. The door opens in Bag End, and you step inside, and I stared into the eyes of Ian McKellen and Martin Freeman, who was new like me. But there's a moment where you sort of pinch yourself and think, God, I've just stepped into Middle-earth, and then you just have to kind of get the wheels in motion and start becoming the character. But there is that moment where you're like, okay, here we go.
How do you think Thorin would fare in our world today?
I think he'd probably be a bit of a hellraiser, actually. I think he would be, he'd be arrested.
In no time flat.
In no time flat, yeah. He just doesn't settle forward, and he'd
bar brawl.
He'd drag that sword out and be sort of flashing it around, and he'd be wrestled to the ground. Well, they'd attempt to. So.
And you're just starting this whirlwind tour around the world, really. What's it like, this fan frenzy that's going on?
You know what's fascinating is I've just done Wellington, Tokyo, and now Toronto, and maybe I've just got lucky, but every single place we've been to, the fans have been so supportive and polite and excited. There really hasn't been a frenzy. I mean, there's excitement, but there's real, there's just real support and camaraderie, and it's nice to see those faces and people dressed up as the characters. And I mean, I'm kind of surprised you're not dressed up as.
I know, I should have.
Or would you be Gandalf?
Well, probably Gandalf with the tall.
I'm surprised you haven't.
Should have worn my big cloak.
You should have done.
Darn, not well. Well, congrats on the movie. If you come back to the next one, I promise I'll dress up.
Cool. I like your tie, by the way. Can I
thanks.
borrow it?
Yeah. Okay, I'll take yours.